Don't work. And then they can say,
I know you said something, and I'm not sure.
You know you're in the shot.
Oh no. Sorry. I thought you were using this one. Last time you take some pictures, I heard you still yours.
Yeah. That's what we're doing. Like you like a podcast.
Let me say that first you hear from both Nicole Bell, Paul Bell, and Valerie Bell, the mother and widow of Sean Bell. National Action Network and I that have stood with the family since this occurrence, now 5 years ago. Receiving word yesterday on the recommendation and decision of the judge, met it with mixed emotions. One, it is the first time someone in authority has said what we've been saying for 5 years, and that is the death of Sean Bell and the wounding of both Trent Benefield and Joe Guzman was caused by police action and not by themselves. I watched in great horror as Nicole and Mr. and Mrs. Bell, Valerie Bell, and Mr. Bell had to sit in that courtroom in Queens and not only maintain their grief, but suffer the insult of defense attorneys trying to put the blame of the death of Sean Bell on Sean and on Joe Guzman and on Trent Benefield. He was demonized. He was in many ways made to look like something other than a citizen that had rights. I will never forget in one of the arguments, we even heard one of the lawyers talking about good blacks as opposed to bad blacks. This added insult to injury. In all of my years of activism, I have never seen a family treated with such disrespect and the memory of someone treated with such disregard. See, it is in that spirit that I welcome what was finally said yesterday, at least in the decision of Mr. Isnaro, that this was something that was reckless, something outside of police guidelines, and something that had nothing to do with the actions of the victims. Having said that, I wish that the judge in the criminal court had said that, and I wish that others had respect. And I wish that this mother and father and this young lady who was hours before the marriage of the father of her children did not have to sit and suffer the insults and bear the brunt of those that would distort the character of their loss to try and get people who are at fault to walk. Having also said that, I am hoping that the police commission will listen to the advice and immediately terminate this officer and enter into no negotiations that would settle and reward with pension or anything else those that operated in the manner that led to the death of Sean Bell and the wounding of Joe Guzman and the wounding of Trent Benefield. Let us not forget, if Isnaro's action was reckless and unjustified, then all of those that followed behind cannot say that we operated based on a reckless decision and therefore we were in guidelines. One operating outside of guidelines means they all, even if they operated unknowingly, were operating outside of the same guidelines and never put that into check. I would also hope that the police commissioner, in his deliberating the plea deals that we understand has been offered, and in deliberating the recommendations that would be made, would consider meeting with the Bell family. As you hear in any sentencing, the victim side is heard from. He should hear from them how they feel about the fact that now that a judge has said, now that an administrative hearing has said, the recklessness that was caused, how they feel, and how 5 years later they bear the burden of every holiday not having their child, their husband at the table. They have shown unusual dignity and have shown impeccable integrity despite the added pain. They've gone on to create programs in the name of Sean, a community center in the name of Sean, a mentoring program Nicole has, Mr. Bell running a community center. They have added no pain to this city. Where there are those that wanted to react in negative ways, it has been them that have said, do not scar his name with violence or rancor. If the city and those that represent the officers had displayed the same dignity and impeccable integrity the Bell family has shown and Nicole has shown, it would not have been the ugly chapter it has been. But despite them holding their heads high and not one time saying one word that would cause rancor, bitterness, or violence in this city, they have been continually insulted by those that are serial defenders of police misconduct. And I think that the least the commissioner should do is hear from them before making a final decision and then decide in the interests of this city. Let me first now defer to Mrs. Bell and Nicole.
Good afternoon, everyone. Reverend Sharpton said it all. It's been 5 years, and it seemed like a little bit of justice. The judge that was on trial for this case should have been the judge at the criminal case, because he saw the evidence right here, all written out in gold, that they killed my son. But life has to go on. Like Mr. Reverend Sharpton said, we'll leave his name out there for them to see it. 107-52 Sutton Boulevard, his smiling face on the awning for Showing Life at our Community Center is there to help the community. If he was still alive, he'd be helping, working at the baseball. If he was still alive, he would be an electrician. But yet, they did not think that night.
That's right.
And it's Nora, to me, you're paranoid. You didn't think, you just wanted to do something to be recommended for, but I'm sorry, it didn't happen that way. But life will still go on, and Sean Elijah Bell's name, and to God be the glory, because we wouldn't have this if God didn't set our steps for us to be there to show the people that Sean was a good man. He was about to turn his life around. Married 32 years, me and my husband. Sean saw a family that all comes from, that he wanted to do the same. At 16, he said, Mom, I want to do something right. He wanted to get married at 16. No, he waited. And he was about to turn his life around, having fun at a party, like any other person would do when they're about to get married at a bachelor party. Yet they say the strip club, everybody goes to a strip club, the guys, to have fun. But those officers, they were all reckless. And I'd just like to thank the judge. And I pray that Commissioner Kelly will see what this judge saw. Thank you.
Good afternoon, evening, everybody. I have to say, yesterday when we got the call that Isnora was found guilty, I felt that in 5 years, with all the pain and the hurt and the marching and the protests and the press conferences that we have done, that something had finally paid off. No, it's not a criminal charge. It's not a guilty verdict of a criminal charge. It's not a felony that they should have received for the crime that they committed, killing Sean and shooting up a neighborhood and causing so much grief between New York City residents and the police department. These men should be fired. There should not be any deals worked out. We're thankful that Isnora was found guilty and that the recommendation was made for him to be terminated. But none of these men should be working out deals. There has been so much pain that's not only been caused to my family, to this nation, to New York City. New York City deserves for these men to be off of the force and not to pay for their pension, for them to go on and live their happy lives. My daughters, Jada and Jordan, were now 8 and 5. Every day miss their father. And when Jada heard yesterday that the officer who initially started this tragedy, that he was finally fired. It may sound small to everyone else, but that he was finally fired for what he did to her dad. She said, Mommy, I love you. Thank you. We thank Jesus. We thank everybody who has supported us. And we say to the commissioner, please, for our family, for the life and the memory of Sean, for Joe and Trent, and for New York City, terminate all of these men with no pensions. No one should be allowed to retire with their dignity and honor. They didn't give that dignity and honor to Sean, Joe, and Trent that night. They reacted, overreacted. So sitting through departmental charges hearings brought back so many memories of that criminal court trial. But the prosecution was much better. It showed that by NYPD's own guidelines that these men were wrong, that what they did that night, their actions were wrong, and that everyone who was involved that night should be held accountable to some level. So we stand here today with a little less grief and just thankful that it has been proven, for the record, because we all have seen it and we all know the truth, but it's been finally proven in everyone else's eyes that that officer who started this tragedy, this atrocity, he overreacted. He had no right of approaching Sean, Joe, and Trent that night with his gun drawn and putting so much fear into their hearts. So, thank you all so much. We had to go on and start these organizations. We had to go on and mentor the youth. And like Ms. Bell said, start organizations that would really empower people from our community We have mentoring, we have dance programs and arts programs and sports programs. But the point is, we did this not only to keep Sean's legacy going, but to really give back to the community that gave to us so much. Thankful for everyone who supported us, even you guys who are here with us today, who have been there since day one. And Reverend Sharpton and National Action Network, everyone has been here with us since day one. But we are still fighting, because there are still men out there who are involved in that shooting that are planning to work out deals. And we pray that Commissioner Kelly does the right thing and terminate all men. Thank you. Hello. 5 years and 6 days ago, I stood before you early that Saturday morning and spoke about my son-in-law, Sean Elijah Bell, being killed. I knew then that Sean hadn't done anything at all to deserve to be murdered. Yesterday, the Deputy Commissioner proved us right. He listened to the evidence and realized that Isnora did not belong on the force. He was paranoid. He blew his cover. He did so many things wrong that evening that caused that disaster. So I'd just like to say thank you to the Commissioner. And again, like Nicole said, I'd like to thank all of you who has been here the last 5 years and 6 days with us, who covered the stories regarding Sean, regarding Nicole. And I'd like to thank Reverend Sharpton, because without him, I don't know how this would have turned out. Thank you.
We also acknowledge the legal team, Attorney Michael Hardy, Attorney Sandy Rubenstein, the legal team, Neville Mitchell, and others that work. And as I said, the Bell family has usual integrity. They thank the media. For the record, I don't join in that thanking y'all. All of y'all, some of y'all I do. We'll take questions.
Nicole, do you remember at the end of the trial when Judge Cooperman said, whatever the conduct of the officers, that will be left for some other day? Is this that other day?
And we had kept that in mind from the day he gave that verdict, Judge Arthur Cooperman, and he said their incompetence is for another court. Although it should have been a guilty verdict in a criminal again, I believe that this is what he was indicating, that these officers didn't belong on the force. They weren't prepared, they weren't trained, they were not ready to be undercover detectives in a vice squad. So, yes, I do believe that this is what he was talking about.
Can you give us some indication what happened to the other officers that were involved?
We are hearing that there have been some negotiations for pleas and pensions. We do not know the specifics, which is why I said the commissioner ought to talk at least to the family. It is not unusual in situations in courts that the family or the victim talks to the court before sentencing. That is not a necessary procedure in police matters, but I'm making that appeal. I also think in relationship to his question to Nicole, I remember that day that the judge said that. But now that the deputy commissioner has said they were not within police guidelines, it even puts the verdict of the criminal judge in a different light, because if they were operating outside of guidelines, then therefore it makes it very clear that if they were not operating as police, then the activities would have to be deemed, in my mind, as criminal. Because the only justification he could give is that they were police in the line of duty. Well, now the police have said they went beyond that. So I think now, as you question Nicole, somebody should ask that judge, well, now what do you deem their conduct as if the police department said they had stepped beyond the boundaries of police conduct?
In terms of procedure, Reverend, should the departmental hearing have taken place prior to the criminal case?
I don't know the legal ramification of that. I don't know.
You can't do that, because the officers would have the right to remain silent and not cooperate, because their criminal rights take precedent.
And a larger question, everyone, in this battle for tenure involving teachers that continues to rage, talks about how difficult it is to fire a tenured teacher. But what about officers, police officers, who acted appropriately on their job, how difficult it is to...
Well, if we are to believe that after a proceeding in which the officers engaged in and a deputy commissioner made a ruling, that ruling would be difficult for the commissioner to abide by, which clearly by law he can or he cannot, but clearly it's up to the commissioner, and clearly it's up to him to engage or not engage, to agree or not engage or not agree in a plea bargain including pensions. I don't think that falls within a gray area here. That's up to the commissioner.
But the issue about, 5 years ago, all of you were standing out there saying that the police acted inappropriately, at times acted criminal. At the very least, someone probably said that they were bad cops. Why does it take 5 years to fire a bad cop?
That's a good question, and I think that's the question we ask. The bad news is that it did take 5 years. The good news is we never gave up, and we're still here 5 years later. And I think that they thought we wouldn't, which is why we all, Mrs. Bell, Nicole, and Nicole's mother, Miss Paul, we wanted to be together. We promised on day one we would stay together. We're still together, and we're not going anywhere until it's all over. It's not over.
What is the next step then to bring this?
I would hope the commissioner agrees to see Nicole and the parents and hear them before he makes the decision, unless his decision is to just say now that they're all fired and there'll be no deals in the interest of justice for what is suffered, when his own deputy commissioner has said this was beyond what the boundaries of a police officer should be.
Are you making maybe an in-person appeal? Are you trying to meet with the commissioner to reach out for that?
No, I was letting you communicate for me. Again, let him meet with the family. I don't want to politicize it. I think that he should talk to the family.
Question for Nicole. Now that you know that Isnora's errors and actions sparked this whole tragedy, what would you want to say to that officer today?
I guess that's a tough question. You know, there's so many things, sitting in the trials and just watching and looking at him, But for the first time in our lives, we actually heard him speak at the Department of Trial hearing. So that was big for us. We had never heard from his own mouth, what was going on in his imagination. But today, if I could say anything to him, it would just be that as bad as we would want to maybe say, mean things, or as much as people would predict we would say terrible things to him, it's really the loss that affects us the most. It's not the badge that he wore, the clothing that he wore, what he did that night took away a life that destroyed families. It destroyed my family. It destroyed Mr. and Mrs. Bell and Sean's siblings. So, 5 years later, it is still so hard. But if I had a chance to speak with him, I think I would just let him know that he caused so much pain, and we've not once, said anything wrong against you. But at the end of the day, everyone has to answer to God. So his day is not over. And to see him understand and how aggressive and defensive he was towards the prosecution, it just showed me that night the person that he was when he approached Sean, Joe, and Trent. So I definitely say that the detective Isnora caused so much pain, and now I hope that he has realized everything that he has done. I'm sure this has affected his life. I'm sure this has changed his life. Just like we get recognized in the street, I'm sure he does. But you can't accuse the victim who was celebrating his bachelor party and a new life of causing their own death. And that's what was done by his attorneys, by himself. he continued to say that Sean had other options. He could have went left instead of going right. I'm from the neighborhood. I know Liverpool Street, which is now Sean Way, and there was absolutely no way that he could have went to the left. And everyone knows that who has seen that block. It's such a narrow street. There's so many little things, and so many excuses, so many things that were said to make it seem as if Sean had committed suicide that night. And now everyone sees that Detective Isnora, you started this. But it's not over. It's not finished. Because at the end of the day, not even the commissioner has last word. God does. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Don't know my name.